morning. Welcome everyone to the official opening of the 2021 Statewide Summit on Women in Technology, which is sponsored by the IU Center of Excellence for Women in Technology. My name is Maureen Biggers. I'm the Executive Director, and I have a few announcements that I'll be sharing as we launch the conference this morning. And before I turn this over to other people who will be featured in this session. So first of all, our goal is to be accessible to all, and we have therefore turned on live transcript so that people can have that capability. But if you prefer not to see the live transcript, it's really easy to turn it off on your own computer. Secondly, as of this morning, we have over 1,100 people registered for the summit. Very exciting for us. If you see something along the way that you think a friend might enjoy who's not registered, please know that our registration will remain open through Saturday at noon, so it's not too late to register. And another mention about that is we will be recording the sessions throughout this conference, and the session recordings will be available within 24 hours after the session, and it's only available to people who are registered. And one other note about that is that if you're participating in a session that has breakouts, those breakouts are not recorded, just so that you know that. So the third thing, check out the community board, and you'll learn more about how to earn the prizes. I know you've been getting information about that with pushes, but we have earbuds, Apple Watch, Kindle, more. So we hope you check that out. And we noticed that the community board is very active, and we encourage you to participate with that. And it's easiest to do that if you download the app, the Whova app. Your input is highly valued. At the end of each session, there's going to be a little link in the chat, and we ask that you go there and just take a minute to give us your feedback about the session. We would really appreciate that. Now, finally, I would like to give a very special thanks to our sponsors. First of all, Adobe, One America, Elastic, Granger, Cornerstone Communications, and Synopsys. So thank you for sponsoring our wonderful conference. We hope you think it's wonderful. And now it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Lori Burns McRobbie. As IU's 18th First Lady, Lori is an active ambassador for Indiana University and its extensive alumni community, with a particular focus on philanthropy and the growing influence of women. Lori is a founder of the Women's Philanthropy Leadership Council at Indiana University Foundation and serves as its honorary chair. A technologist in higher education for more than 25 years, she served in numerous management and executive positions at the University of Michigan and as an executive director with Internet2. She helped found and lead Internet2's Inclusivity Initiative, which has sponsored scholarships and travel grants for women technologists and network engineers. In 2014, she was given the Leading Light Outstanding Leadership Award by the Indianapolis-based organization Women in High Tech. And in 2020, she received the Ada Lovelace Award from the city of Bloomington in recognition for her dedicated work with STEAM. Lori holds an adjunct faculty position in IU's Leddy School of Informatics, Computing and Engineering, and chairs the advisory council for our center, the Center of Excellence for Women in Technology, for which she was a co-founder. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Lori.
Thank you, Maureen, and welcome everyone. It is really great to be here at what is our 8th summit, going back to the very first one we did in the spring of 2014. But of course, this is our very first virtual and statewide summit. The center is a Bloomington-based program, and as such, our annual gatherings have been Bloomington-based as well, although they have long been open to members of the IU community across all campuses. And we hope that going forward, we can construct our summit to include more virtual elements so that all of you can continue to participate, learn, and connect. The Center of Excellence for Women in Technology was founded in 2013 to empower and enable women, majority and BIPOC populations, in their use and mastery of the technologies relevant to their work and to their lives. Then, as unfortunately still now, The gender gap in the IT workforce, in computer science classrooms, and in other technology adjacent disciplines means that we have to be intentional in supporting all women as technology users and creators. Technology is in every discipline, every job, every company or organization, in every sector of the economy. And as we continue to increase our dependence on tech, and as we move into the brave new world of AI, about which we'll hear more this afternoon from Genevieve Bell and other presenters throughout the conference, we know how critical it is for all of us that the creators, inventors, and innovators of the tools of our information age reflect the diversity of the communities they're meant to serve. CWIT works to ensure that all IU women will know they belong in tech and that tech belongs to them just as much as it does to men. And speaking of which, our mission also includes helping male allies understand how they can contribute to creating a more inclusive environment for all. And we welcome those allies and advocates who are with us here today. We have a great program ahead of us, and my thanks go to everyone who has contributed to its creation, the presenters, the staff of the center and university events who are orchestrating all of this, and our sponsors, One America, Elastic, Grainger, Cornerstone Information Systems, Synopsys, and of course, our executive platinum sponsor and the sponsor for our opening session, Adobe. IU is an Adobe Creative Campus, so all members of the IU community have access to all of the great Adobe tools that are available to enhance your work for free. As Maureen noted, there are several workshops throughout the conference where you can learn more. It is now my pleasure to introduce our first keynote speaker for the 2021 Statewide Summit for Women in Technology, Mala Sharma. Mala is Vice President and General Manager of Creative Cloud Marketing, Community and Digital Media Education for Adobe. She is passionate about building self-worth through creativity and education and works tirelessly to make Adobe's tools widely available to youth and to a broader base of creatives. With a bachelor's degree in business and an MBA, Mala worked in consulting at KPMG in India, her native country, went to Kimberly-Clark Unilever, and then moved into tech when she came to the US. She has been at Adobe for over 15 years and was a key member of the leadership team that transitioned Adobe into a SaaS powerhouse. Mala's team markets some of the most iconic brands in creative software, including Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere Pro, and Lightroom. In her talk today, Mala will discuss why creativity and digital literacy are superpowers and how embracing these essential skills will prepare students of any age to thrive in an increasingly digital world. As she says, in this ever-changing world, employers need a workforce that can invent the future, and the world needs engaged, informed citizens with the vision to solve the problems that define our era. Mala will also share stories from her illustrious career at Adobe, what she's learned in her 17 plus years in the tech industry, and the importance of being you to succeed in your career. Welcome, Mala.
Thank you, Laurie, for that lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. I am so honored to have this opportunity to discuss a topic that's incredibly near and dear to my heart, the importance of creativity in building your career and life success. First, I want to add my warm welcome to all the students, the faculty and staff, and the community, and especially the male allies. I was thrilled to hear that there's men attending this really important session as well across the IU network. As Maureen said, and Laurie said, IU and Adobe have had a long partnership. I love working with Maureen and Laurie and the team as well, and so many other faculty members who have worked tirelessly to make sure all of you at the university have access to Adobe products, whether you're majoring in design or engineering. And the reason I love this is because it's a real world reflection of Adobe's mission of enabling creativity for all. Whether you're studying to be a designer, an engineer, a medical professional, or a teacher for that matter, creativity is the heartbeat of being successful. To understand how I ended up at Adobe and why I'm so passionate about using creativity and the digital tools to empower students, I want to spend a couple of minutes just sharing a little bit about my life story. I was born and raised in India. My father was in the Indian Navy, so I got to travel to different parts of India and abroad. And I take a lot of pride in India's rich cultural and creative heritage. And if you are from India or you've visited India, I'm sure you've experienced this in the everyday life you see, whether it's the saris that women wear, the craftsmanship of the karigars or craftsmen in villages, the grandeur and beauty of the temples, mosques, churches, and synagogues, or the sculptures and monuments across the country. And of course, how can you forget Bollywood, the movies, and everything else that goes with it? India is a country full of creativity, culture, and vibrancy. And it is where I learned both the power of creative expression and the importance of learning. And my appreciation for learning and education and storytelling came early in my childhood, particularly from my mom. Her name is Chandrarekha Sharma. She's over 80 now. And she's been teaching ever since I knew her and before I arrived on this planet, and still teaches till today, although she's over 80 years old. I grew up seeing her not just teach science and math to kids in high school, but taking time out and volunteering and serving kids who had lesser means and came from underprivileged backgrounds. She taught them not just life skills, but also how to communicate, how to speak, how to write effectively. And I remember her doing simple assignments and science experiments and teaching kids how to stitch and putting up fairs and all of these things in the community. And what I learned really was that when you invest time in the next generation and you help them find their voice and express what they can bring and contribute to the world, it is life-changing for them. And today, in fact, she continues to teach. She taught herself how to use Zoom and is now teaching digitally. She lives in India, in Bombay or Mumbai, and she amazes me every day in how she spends and invests time in the next generation. And that experience led me and inspired me to spend my last sabbatical volunteering with Teach for India. Teach for India is a nonprofit, and they are dedicated to eliminating inequity in education in India specifically. I chose to spend about 6 weeks during my sabbatical teaching 12 to 14-year-olds how to use technology to learn. Now, these are kids in a government school. They had no access to technology. They had never used Adobe tools. And I introduced them not just to hardware, but also the software that Adobe provides and how to create stories. And what completely blew my mind, that these kids who English was not their first language, they had never created a video or created a collage or a poster for that matter. When I set them in front of the tools and the software and gave them a prompt about talking about their values, they created the most beautiful stories and blew my mind. And most importantly, is they blew their teachers and their parents' minds. Seeing those kids' eyes light up and them discovering the power of storytelling that they had was life-changing, not just for them, but for me. And that is when I made it my mission to work within Adobe to ensure that students globally across the world get access to storytelling tools so that they can contribute and make a difference in the world. But it wasn't only my mom who instilled this passion of learning in me. Throughout my schooling, I was fascinated by the power of stories. As I found myself on stage, dancing, singing, acting, debating. And in fact, I never had any grand aspirations to get an MBA, or I certainly didn't imagine ever that I would be in the US working for a company like Adobe as an executive. I started off wanting to be an actor, in fact. And then because my father's background was in the military, I wanted to be a gunnery officer. But my father persuaded me against both of those careers because at that time in India, he didn't think women had those opportunities and had got the respect in those fields. So I ended up at Symbiosis to get my MBA in business management. So what happened after that is I really wanted to get my dream job. My dream job was to join Unilever in India in consumer packaged goods as a brand manager. But that's not exactly how it worked out. So I ended up at KPMG in management consulting, which created the foundation again of storytelling in the business context, because I was presenting to boards and senior leaders about business decisions and strategies that they had to drive to grow their businesses. 5 years into that, I caught a call from Unilever and I ended up in my dream job 5 years later. But it meant I had to take a step back in my career. Although I'd had 5 years of successful growth in consulting at KPMG, I wanted to follow my path and I was willing to restart my career, which I did. And I spent a couple of years there and enjoyed my time in being the brand manager for a consumer packaged goods company, and finally moved to the US. And in the US, I again sort of restarted my career because I didn't know tech. At the time when I was growing up in India, tech was only available to people who were typing reports. I remember we used to create slides and we used to have these transparencies. Maybe Maureen and Laurie remember those. But I came to the US, I was in California, in the Bay Area specifically, and all the jobs around me were in tech. So I ended up at a hardware company called Creative Labs, where I learned an incredible amount about hardware specifically. And about 15 years ago, I got a call from Adobe. And once I got to Adobe, I once again, because this was a new change in the career that I had to make a restart, a step back in my career. But what I've learned through these 3 step backs I've had, when you really want to do something and your focus is learning and growth, it ultimately boosts your learning, boosts your contribution to society, and boosts your career as well. And from there at Adobe, I've had multiple jobs. I started in product marketing, I did product management, business strategy. As Maureen and Laurie said, I was part of the team that led the business case for transitioning Adobe's business from a box software business to a subscription business. And throughout this, I've had these opportunities to have an impact. And what I found that the one thing that was consistent is how I showed up and how I told the stories that I did, even in the business context. And I share all of this with you because one of the mistakes I made, or maybe misconceptions I had when I was starting out in my career, like many of you will shortly, is I assumed that my career would be linear, but that's not how it was. It had its ups and downs, it had its horizontals, it had its rotations, and all of that prepared me for the opportunities I've had along the way. So I think the magic of opportunities is about embracing them and bringing your best self, and about really understanding what the opportunity is, and most importantly is packaging that opportunity in a compelling way, in a way that matters to the business or to whichever organization you're working in or any school that you might be in. So through my career, I was willing to take these non-linear routes and make these scary decisions, because the one thing that was consistent for me has been my values. And I'll talk more about values later. But the importance of values as a North Star, I believe, is what keeps all of us, whether it's in our personal lives or our professional lives, continue to make progress and continue to grow. And my 3 values that I'm going to share with you is, the first one is unity in thought, word, and action. The second one is do what is right and not what feels good. And the third one is that every human being has the potential to be perfect. We just need to create the right environment. And I realized throughout my career that as long as I lead with my values, I would always be guided to the right opportunities and bring my best self. And I'll talk more about this later in the presentation. But it's these values and the importance of values that also led me to arriving at Adobe. I remember a recruiter reaching out to me about the company at that time. I had no idea about Adobe, but in my research, I came across an article in a local newspaper called the San Jose Mercury News about the then CEO. His name was Bruce Chizen. And it was an interview about him becoming the CEO. And what really impressed me and blew me away is when the interviewer said, "So how do you feel about being the CEO of Adobe?" And his response was so humble. He said, "I feel unprepared to take on the role of the responsibility of these thousands of employees for the company. And I'm honored to have this opportunity." And that humility really spoke to me. And as I did even more research about Adobe, I learned about the founders and what their values were. And when they sort of wrote down what do they want to build in terms of a culture at the company, they said three things. The first one was build a company you want to show up at work every day. That sounds pretty important. The second thing they said is people are our most important assets. And our most important assets go home every night. And the third thing they wrote down is we want to build a company where great ideas can come from anywhere. And just reading about those three values, I was completely sold because I found that those values of the company were incredibly aligned with my own personal values. And I've stayed with Adobe for 15 years as I've experienced these values because the company's foundation is built on this. How beautiful is that? And I would say, as you all consider your careers and you think about which companies you might go to work for, think about your own personal values first and try to understand whether it's the team you select, the leader you select to work with, or the company you select to work with, is how it coincides and resonates with your personal values. So while values are certainly important, the purpose of today's summit is about tech and women and creativity. So I'd like to talk about the importance of digital literacy and creativity in your careers. I'm sure you will all agree that when we all look around, whether it's entertainment, education, or business, content and design are fueling the digital economy. When I was your age, the way we communicated, we used to write letters. I remember I used to have pen friends in Europe at the time, and I would write letters. But these days, all of you communicate through social media platforms that are completely driven through photos, videos, animations, and more. So we believe that content and design is fueling the global economy and will continue to do so. Creativity is expanding beyond creative professionals. People from all backgrounds need to be able to create and tell their stories. History papers have been replaced by web and video productions. Hundreds of millions of people engage in social media telling stories every day. And later today, you'll see this presentation from one of the students who's a STEM student and how she brought art and creativity into her work to have incredible impact. And entrepreneurs pitch and market 3D prototypes by using products like UX design tools, because a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings, just like a photo is worth many words. So creativity is happening beyond the desktop. It is a given that people use their phones and take pictures and videos, but mobile devices have also become a creation device. Editing photos and videos and sketching and drawing are becoming more and more commonplace, and actions that people are doing on their mobile devices. And finally, the power of original content has never been more evident than before. Whether you're talking about media conglomerates, blockbuster game titles, or individual social media stars, there are tens of billions of dollars that are being spent on the likes by Netflix, Apple, and Amazon to fuel this digital content consumption. On YouTube, top 25 earners make over $10 million a year, inspiring many young creators or many young students to become YouTubers. In fact, my nephew, who's about 11 years old, is aspiring to become a YouTube star as well, just like I'm sure you see, or maybe some of you are aspiring to become the same as well. So literally, everyone is trying to tell a story, whether they're a large company, individuals, students, or professionals who are looking to start their careers. Everybody wants to stand out and build a brand. So to net this out, irregardless of the career you choose, creative expression and creative storytelling will be the norm. This is why creativity and digital literacy skills are of immense importance to the jobs of the future. I like to say that machines are pretty great at zeros and ones. In fact, I don't think it's a far stretch to assume that engineering and math skills will one day become potentially redundant. While some fears persist that the rise of artificial intelligence will replace the need for human skills and jobs, fear not, because imagination, ingenuity, and inventiveness are all things that are innately human. They're becoming increasingly essential for companies and their employees in this age of disruption. A computer can crunch numbers all day long, but we need creativity and digital literacy skills to interpret and present those numbers so people can make decisions and businesses can make abstract decisions. The pandemic has completely upended life for everyone around the world. In your day-to-day as students, I'm sure you've all had to rethink what it means to go to school, work and present projects, to stand out and interact with communities. You've all had to use creativity in how you approach your classes and had to rely more on your digital savvy to get things done. How we learn and work has been changed forever. And the only way forward is through creative problem solving. In fact, it's not just us at Adobe who believe this. The World Economic Forum, Bloomberg, and The Economist all agree on this point. Creativity is a critical skill for the future workforce. An IBM study of 1,500 CEOs also stated that creativity is the single most important skill. LinkedIn publishes the most valued skills for business on an annual basis. And their report identified that creativity is, in fact, the number one most valued skill for businesses. And organizations across the board, including hiring managers, are saying the same. And if you need further proof, a survey done recently by Chronicle of Higher Education last year amongst hiring managers reinforced this, that the insight of digital literacy as an essential skill for career success. In fact, the study shows that 3/4 of hiring managers reported that their companies value this skill to use technologies to communicate information and content. So digital literacy is an essential skill, and it has grown to mean so much more than just coding, creating spreadsheets, or being media savvy. It's about enabling you to apply your creativity in the digital context, demonstrating your knowledge and building a vision for a better future as an essential part of digital literacy and will be paramount for your future success. Adobe also conducted a study in 2019. The study was called Get Hired. We looked at 2 million job postings and 2 million resumes online and conducted several in-depth interviews with hiring managers across various industries: nursing, data science, software development, construction, and many more. And what we found was that there's a gap between what employers are seeking and what applicants are demonstrating. Across industries, job postings call for creative and communication skills. But in the survey, almost 75% of the resumes did not highlight either of these skills. So this is an opportunity for you. By showcasing your in-demand skills in your resumes and in interviews and in your portfolios, most importantly, you will stand out, your digital portfolios. In many ways, creativity and digital literacy are the new superpower, as I like to say, in business. So how does Adobe fit into all of this in the education landscape? And how is Adobe looking to help and address these needs of educators, administrators, and students? Simply put, we want to help you feel empowered to reach your full potential. We believe that if all students are taught essential creativity and digital literacy skills, doors will open to a brighter future and prepare all of you to thrive in a changing world. Our overall education mission is threefold. The first is about empowering creativity for everyone to help you transform your personal, professional, and business worlds. Creativity is a unique human trait and it needs to be nurtured. And to this end, we have tools, we have for both students, of course, as well as we have a platform called the Adobe Education Exchange that provides curriculum for teachers and faculty to bring creativity into the classroom. Second, it's about cultivating digital literacy. In a world that's increasingly digital, becoming successful requires you to be digital literate. And we're committed to improving learning outcomes and seek to empower all students across all disciplines with the essential creative and digital literacy skills. And third, by modernizing the education experience. So running education, the business of education digitally, making it more digital means just like the retail industry transformed 10 years ago, the education industry has the opportunity and the education vertical has the opportunity to create these personalized learning experiences that are tuned to each student and modernizing the business in a way that workflows are more seamless. Success is more seamlessly measured. And whether you're a faculty or whether you're a student, you have a clear understanding of where the student is on their path of learning. So our goal is to make our tools and services accessible easily across all platforms and making our products more accessible to students. So I mentioned earlier the importance of creativity in the context of STEM. What I'd like to do now is play a video that shows the importance in the context of a student who is a STEM student, but by bringing creativity and storytelling into her work, she was able to have incredible impact. Please play the video.
When you think of a STEM student, you probably think numbers and lab coats, not magic and creativity. But why not think of both? Hi, my name is Hilary Andales, and I'm from the island province of Leyte in the Philippines. While most children grow up hearing Cinderella stories and tales of magic, I grew up learning about Marie Curie and Charles Darwin. My father loved physics, so naturally I was surrounded by math and science both at home and at school. In first grade, I started joining math competitions. I became known as the math girl. But there was also another boy in my class who was good at art, and he would enter the art competitions. I got called intelligent, while he got called creative. I wondered, why couldn't we be both? In 8th grade, I started designing graphics about my favorite show, Doctor Who. At first, I was confused by Photoshop's buttons. But what was first intimidating soon became intuitive. I then created things like t-shirts, infographics, and even a math textbook for kids in my community. At this point, I realized the magic I had to make something that didn't exist before exist. But then, in 2013, I had a big turning point in my life. Typhoon Yolanda struck my home and left over 6,000 people dead. Though we were used to big storms, no one adequately explained the dangers of this one. Had the dangers of a storm surge been communicated properly, more people could have been saved. In that moment, I realized that sharing science in a more understandable way could make a better world. And more importantly, I realized that I can help make that better world. In 2017, I combined my interests in science and communication to compete in the Breakthrough Junior Challenge, where students create videos explaining complex concepts in ways that everyone can understand. My entry about Einstein's theory of relativity won first among 11,000 entries worldwide. I got to stand on the same stage as Morgan Freeman and my favorite scientists. I also received a scholarship to attend MIT, where I'm currently studying and doing research on astrophysics. I also traveled the world sharing digital literacy, inspiration, and of course, science with everyone. So I guess, in a way, I still am the math girl. But now, you can call me creative too.
I love this story, and I hope all of you enjoyed it as well. And the reason I love Hillary's story is because it shows that creativity is not just for art and design students or for somebody who's looking to create a career in advertising and communication, but that anyone can bring storytelling and creative expression and digital literacy into their life to have an impact in the world and change the world in a very meaningful way. In fact, later today, there's a session where you will hear directly from Hillary and Dallas about her story and how she's taken it forward. So let's bring it all together now. What I wanted to end with are the 6 most important lessons I've learned throughout my career, which include skills like communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, and standing firm with my core values. So let's start. Yeah, so do what is right and not what feels good. I talked about this earlier. As I mentioned before, one of the central tenets of my life has been to always stand up for what I think is right, even if it's been uncomfortable. An example very close to my heart, being from India and having the context of working women in India, is having conversations with senior leaders at our India office, who are nearly always men, whenever I'm there, and encouraging them to bring women into more meetings and conversations, and opening the door to having them bring their ideas to the table. As a leader, I found that one of the best things I can do is to continually make space for the voices of women. Tap into all your superpowers. As an introvert myself, one of my superpowers is the ability for deep reflection and taking a pause to assess what I did right and what I could do better. This mindful approach to leadership has allowed me to have much more impact in my work, but most importantly with my team. Beyond reflection, being a good listener has also allowed me to provide support to women employees by helping them think through how they can rise to any occasion in their career. The third one is asking for feedback. Learning to ask for feedback is one of the most important things we can all do. And not taking feedback or taking feedback personally is one of the things we have to shed. This is especially important for women. And I'm sorry for the generalization, but what I have observed is that sometimes we, and I include myself in it, tend to take feedback personally. While often a bitter pill to swallow, I have learned that to think of feedback as a way to get better at my job and add more value to my team. We miss the point of feedback when we immediately dwell on what we did wrong. Realize your impact. When I went from a manager to a director, I realized that what I was saying suddenly carried a different amount of weight, more weight, with the people on my team. What you say and how you say it matters. And you must be aware of how you show up to a conversation with people on your team or executives or your family. If I feel like my point could have caused someone else to not speak up, I always will have a follow-up conversation with that person so that I can, one, articulate my point of view, but more importantly, hear their point of view. In fact, more recently, I've started carrying a reminder to stay present within meetings because as an executive, I can sometimes get overly intense, and having this little reminder with me helps me to be more aware on how to show up. Be you. You find much more success in work and life if you show up as your authentic self, not as the version of yourself that you think people want to see. It is simply not sustainable to pretend or compartmentalize. At the beginning of my career, I would often hold back on saying anything in a meeting that I was not personally driving. I was just, attend the meeting. And somebody gave me some feedback at the time, which is, if you're at the meeting, you have a seat at the table. And that was one of the best advices I got, is that when you're there, people want to hear from you. So if you have something to contribute, please contribute. And the last one is help others along the way. As a person of Indian origin, without a tech background, I never imagined that I would be a senior executive at a world-renowned company, a tech company. When I was promoted to my current role, I remember women at various stages of their careers rallying around me and wanting to hear about my journey. And while I've never considered my journey special, I was heartened to know that my sharing motivated others to aspire to executive level opportunities. This experience inspired me to take on even more active role in mentoring others in my organization and being part of programs like Women at Adobe. I'm very grateful for the focus Adobe puts on making sure everyone feels included and welcome at the company, particularly our work around gender and pay parity and programs like the Adobe Women in Technology Scholarship Programs. People are what matter the most. So ultimately, it's the experience we build as leaders that makes Adobe a place where everyone can do their best work, a place where people can grow, learn, be creative, no matter what their background. And I share all these lessons in the hopes that one or all of them will help you on your own journey of one, declaring what your North Stars are, what your values are, and helping you at school and in your future careers. In closing, I'd like to reiterate what Maureen mentioned at the beginning of the summit. Adobe is also offering 10 other sessions throughout the next 3 days, whether it's how to create a resume in InDesign, social media content, Premiere Rush, and other sessions. So I hope you will attend them. I hope you'll take the time to pop in and start your learning of creativity, creative storytelling, and digital literacy to help you grow in various aspects of your life and work. Thank you again for attending the session. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'd now like to open it up for any questions from the audience.
So first of all, I'd like just to say thank you to Mala for this wonderful talk, for sharing her story, demonstrating that not all paths are vertical and they take lots of meandering through the woods. And it's always so good to hear that message, as well as sharing your expertise and advice for so many people on the call who are just really interested in what you have to say. I'd like to invite all of you to take advantage of the Q&A button on your call today. And if you have questions for Mala, to go ahead and drop those in. I will share those with her so she can respond. We have about 15 minutes for your questions. So why don't we get started with some really great questions that have already come in. I'm going to start here with Gwendolyn Sands asks, one thing I see as both a woman who has applied for tech jobs and also as someone who has hired people for technical roles is that we often have a very rigid identity about what qualifies as technical. Women seem particularly hesitant to feel technical enough. If you are looking to hire candidates for an IT or data analysis role, are there ways to make the language on the job posting more inclusive to attract female candidates?
Yes, thank you, Gwendolyn, for that question. And I 100% agree with you that there's a lot of opportunity in this area. And I think that the good news here, though, is that the conversation is shifting very rapidly to make postings for jobs, and not just in tech, by the way, across all jobs more inclusive. And as I mentioned in the research that we've done, that the notion and importance of creative storytelling is showing up more in job postings. And I think women can lean into that area of talking about how they can bring their skills to storytelling, to problem solving, talking about nurturing teams and growing teams. So I agree with you that there's an opportunity for companies to change their tone and how they talk about job requirements. But I would ask that this generation, as you go for those interviews, as you look past the words, is to really inspire hiring managers to think about what all you can bring to the table.
Thank you. And here's one from Tara Agarwal. What is some advice for those scary shifts of possibly starting your career over? Recently, I've been considering some different options after I get some experience, and many of them would require an international move or a restart. Any advice on how to face those challenges?
Thank you, Tara, for that question. My advice or thought on that is having a deep sense of conviction that you are capable of anything that you're willing to put your best into. That truly has been my guiding light, is having a deep sense of self-worth and knowing that my intention, whatever is presented to me, whatever opportunities presented to me, is to bring my best self. And this is where my values really have helped me, not just in my career, but across my entire life, even in my personal choices that I've made, is having a deep sense of conviction in your own strengths and your own personal value in the world.
Thank you. This one from Aria Greenberg. Hi, Mala. I work in computer science / engineering for Indiana University, and I am also in my last year of an MBA at the Kelley School of Business. My question is, do you regularly use technical skills you gained in your experience as an analyst in your leadership role at Adobe?
Absolutely, Aria. One of the things in business, and it is what we do every day, right, is trying to understand what are the opportunities that the company has and what information do we have in terms of evidence of our current business that we use as information to make future business decisions. So yes, I'm a very data-driven person. I don't run the tables myself today, but every business conversation I'm in starts with the data, starts with customer insights, and having that background allows me to be a more effective business leader, but also I think helps me point my team in directions to go explore and get more curious about what the data is telling us. But I will add to that is that it's not just about the data. What I've found is ultimately it's about how that gets presented. And I think that video I just shared of Hillary is so powerful just for that reason. Like, she used the data and packaged it in a way that could have higher impact.
All right, I'm going to combine two. This is both from Ethel Mickey and Anna Kim. Could Mala elaborate a bit on what she meant when she said she had to take a step back each time she moved on to a new opportunity? And Anna wanted to know, how did you overcome your fears of having to step back in your career each time you changed roles?
Yeah, what I literally meant is when I was in consulting, in KPMG, I was a senior consultant. And then when I moved to Unilever, I started out as an individual, and I had a team of, I think, 7 or 8 people I was working with. And when I went to Unilever, I basically literally started at the bottom of the rung. I was, an assistant product manager. When I moved to Creative Labs, in tech, I had 7 years of a very successful career in India. But I again started out as I think I was a retail marketing specialist, and many of you may not know. Actually, Best Buy still exists. There used to be companies like CompUSA and Fry's, and my job, after although having an incredibly successful career in India, was to approve and proof the ads that they would place on a weekly basis every week. And what that means really is the reason I was willing to do that is, again, goes back to the question that Tara asked, which is I have always believed, and I think it's a really important factor in my life, is what drives you is your values. Everything else is just an incident or an opportunity to prove that you can live your values. And my attitude has always been, as long as I am learning and I'm contributing and I am in a positive space adding value, I will end up in a good place. I have conviction in that. And so that literally translates to being willing to take risk, and with an attitude of knowing that you'll bring your best self.
Okay, this one from Kia Hill. What has been the biggest challenge as a woman in a leadership role for you?
I would say the reality is women have to overcome some real biases. If you're an assertive, aggressive leader as a man, you can get away with a lot. But when a woman is being assertive and aggressive, well, she is being, persnickety, or she's too bossy, you have to deal with those perceptions that people have. And, you might say it's unfair, that's not right, but that's the reality. So what that means is that we do have to work harder in building relationships. We do have to work harder and recognizing that we have to, our tone matters, right? And so understanding that and not fighting that, but embracing that and being smart about it, and helping people understand where you're coming from. I have learned that the importance of vulnerability is probably the most important things and guess what? That's a strength women have, right? Is how do you be strategically vulnerable and help people understand where you're coming from, so that the appreciation of what you're bringing to the table increases, is something that I found incredibly important and realistic.
Mala, we're getting a sense of the answer to this next question by many of the things that you have said, but could you share with us how you define your own leadership style?
I would say it's a blend of two things, and it has evolved over the years a lot. I would say early in my career, my style was command and control. It was like, I got all the answers, I'm going to get it done. What I have learned over the years is command and control gets you so far. A real leader creates a multiplier effect. And they create that multiplier effect by bringing people around them who are smarter than them, who are different than them, and brings what they have learned as an input into their team's capabilities, and really helps the team create that multiplier effect and expand what the leader could not have been able to do if they were alone. And I think a combination of reflection, humility, and knowing that the end result will be way more powerful if you don't go at it alone, but by tapping into the strengths of others, is something that I focus on, and I'm still working on it. And I think that's a really important part of leadership, is keep working on it.
Okay, I'm going to get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty and practical advice. So two related to very career focused. One is, what is something that you wish you had known before entering the tech field? Let's start with that.
What I wish I'd never, before I enter the tech field, that it's no different, that people are the same. You know, it's the same. It doesn't matter which field you're in. It's people you have to move. And to move people, you need to know your stuff and you need to be a great storyteller. It doesn't matter which field you're in.
Mala, along the way, as you were moving between jobs, did you have to take new classes or certifications? As a mid-career professional, I'm curious to learn about how to make that jump into the tech industry.
You know, I personally, let me think about it. I personally did not have to take a tech course as such and get certified, because although I am in tech, my leaning has been more on the business side. But that said, Neeti, I think that what I have spent time on, and I think my consulting days help me with this, is really digging in and understanding the product and the technology. And I think that's just an important best practice for any leader at any level, to go deep and understand the product, the technology, their customers in the market. That said, the beauty of the world we live in today is that you can get certifications. There are platforms out there that help you get qualified. Many companies are accepting certifications as a way to, especially for specific skills. So I would encourage you to absolutely explore that, and don't I see there's a thread in many of these questions about taking risk. The world that we live in is incredibly forgiving, the digital world, because it's so transient. And the opportunity to learn is enormous, especially in the context of the digital world. And the digital world also allows you to track how you're doing in a very personalized way. So you have more tools than I think maybe is completely understood to actually be successful and learn and transform your career, more so in today's context than certainly in my context.
So we're getting close to the end, so I want to try to squeeze in a few more questions. This is one from Rachel. Hi, Mala, you are such an inspiring woman, and I'm grateful to have heard your story. I've restarted my career several times and finally have found a home for myself in the digital archiving world. However, I feel like an imposter and like I'm behind in my field because I took so long to settle into my career. I'm curious if you have advice for someone struggling with imposter syndrome, not only as a woman in the workforce, but also as just a person who did not start out in their current field. And I'm sure, Mala, your answer will impact many of the people on the call, because we all know about this, and at one time or another all feel this.
Yes. So Rachel, first, thank you for sharing the journey that you've been on. And I think that's the beginning, in my mind, Rachel, of getting out of any syndrome that you might be feeling. The authentic recognition of where you are. And if you're happy doing what you're doing in this job that you finally landed in, that you feel where you belong, my advice is to shed the norms of how society evaluates you and focus on your own internally. How do you feel? Do you feel you're in the right place? And if you're in a position, feeling a position of strength and clarity that this is the right thing for you, damn the world, just be you.
You know, that is a perfect note to end on. There were some other really good questions I wanted to get to, but I can't think of a better concluding comment than the one you just made, Mala. So let me please thank you for kicking off our summit, our largest ever, our first virtual. Great to have you on board with just really inspiring message and a lot of useful advice for all the people on the call. For those of you out there, I had dropped a link earlier in the chat, and I will do it again shortly for a quick evaluation. I encourage you to click on that, and you'll get those messages a lot throughout the next 4 days. We have a full schedule this afternoon, tomorrow, Saturday, and another keynote on Monday. So please take advantage of looking at that agenda and check off some things. Thank you all. I'm sorry for those of you we didn't get to all of the questions. They were all very good. I'll try to keep the Q&A open and see if there are some I can respond to. But thank you all again. And Mala, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Laurie, Maureen, and thank you for everybody who attended. It's been my pleasure and honor to meet all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.